Hello, and welcome to my walks with a camera. What does the word revolution mean to you? Or the word rebellion? Both have two separate meanings, but they all come from the same activity. This, where I'm standing, is Butler's burial ground in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and it's where the Butler, the Klaus, and the Friel families are buried. And this piece of land is part of the Butler farm. What makes them important? Because if it wasn't for the American Revolution, or if you're a United Empire loyalist, the American Rebellion, this piece of real estate would never have come into existence. And it was land that was given to a John Butler for compensation for his war losses in the upper province of New York, or state if you prefer, because John Butler and his family supported the British Crown during the American Revolution or rebellion, depending on which side of the fence you land on. John Butler also raised a regiment known as Butler's Rangers, and at the end of the American Revolutionary War, they settled in what becomes the Niagara region, or at the time was known as the Nassau District, in the province of Quebec, because the province of Upper Canada doesn't come into existence until 1792. And this is where it can get a little interesting, because depending on your point of view, Butler's Rangers was either a terrorist Tory organization, or it was a regiment fighting for its lawful government in what is a civil insurrection, a rebellion against the Crown and the Crown's lawful representatives. It all depends on your point of view. Are you a patriot, a rebel, or a loyalist, Tory? The interesting thing is, most Tories were not conservatives, and they came from all walks of life, right across the spectrum. But that's the interesting thing about revolutions. Who writes the history? And who says what they are and their aims, and who is right and who is wrong? So one of the things about the American Revolution that a lot of people don't like to talk about is nobody's hands were clean. And for every town and village burned, every group of people and rebel militia slaughtered by Butler's Rangers, there were equal atrocities committed by the rebel or patriot side. And that's the thing about revolutions. They're never clean, they're never nice, and it's the winners who write the history. Now, from the American Revolution came the United States of America. And this is their 250th anniversary of existing. As a historic reenactor, I partook in the 200th anniversary of the American Revolution as a loyalist in the King's Royal Regiment of New York, the recreated unit of the original regiment of 2 battalions raised by Sir John Johnson, the 2nd Baronet of New York. He and John Butler were friends. John Butler was also the superintendent of the Indian Department operating out of Fort Niagara. When the American Revolution was finished and the United States had won and was formed as a country, those loyalists had nowhere to go because they couldn't go home. Many of them had served in provincial regiments, Butler's Rangers, King's Royal Regiment of New York, Peter's Corps, Loyal Rangers, Leake's Independent Company, the Royal Highland Immigrants. So what do they do and where do they go? They settle this area, for one, and they also settle the north shore of the St. Lawrence River, from the Bay of Quinte right through to Montreal. During the War of 1812, many officers who had served in Butler's Rangers served in the Lincoln Militia in this area. Many of them helped found the Lincoln Militia. And it's kind of interesting because when the Lincoln Militia raided across the Niagara River into the state of New York, it was said, Butler's Rangers is back. And they had a grudge. When the Americans captured the Niagara region in 1813, one of the places they came to was the Butler Farm, of which this cemetery was part of. And they desecrated John Butler's grave. Hard feelings, but that's revolution. There are hard feelings on all sides. But it's an interesting story. A group of American loyalists who are displaced from their homes and their lands, both First Nations and non-First Nations, white and black, having nowhere to go, come to a province, Quebec, and settle on land that is given to them by the British Crown. And John Butler is part of that story because he founded the town of Butlersbury, whose name was changed to Newark, whose name was also changed to Niagara-on-the-Lake. There are a lot of really interesting stories in this area. You should come, check them out. In your own area, where you live, there are interesting stories, interesting places. Go check them out. Very cool little cemetery. Very cool. Let's go see what else we can find in Niagara-on-the-Lake. It's a very cool little town. Shaw Festival's here. Live theater. This lot is the homestead of John Butler, and he settled here after the American Revolutionary War. His regiment was based at what's known as Butler's Barracks, which was an area that was set aside for Loyalist troops and First Nations warriors. And Butler's Barracks has an interesting history of its own. It later morphed into what was known as Camp Niagara, and it was finally given up by the Canadian military in 1965 and is now part of Parks Canada. But this site and these outlines on the ground are the remains of the foundation of John Butler's house. When the Americans captured this area in 1813, they fortified the house as an outpost to guard Fort George and their military earthworks along the Niagara River. This area was open to a number of skirmishes between British, Canadian, and American forces. And when the Americans abandoned Newark, modern-day Niagara-on-the-Lake, they burned the town to the ground, including John Butler's house. Really interesting history. In your area, there are all kinds of stories similar to this. Many are different. Go and check them out. Just remember, in checking out the stories in your area, wandering around, keep walking with a camera. Until next time, cheers.